Episode 305 of the TV Dudes, recorded October 21st, 2020, the early Halloween episode. It's our early Halloween episode. Spooky. This week,
spooky season.
We have got a couple different flavors of family dysfunction and evil possessions in Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix and Marvel's Helstrom on Hulu, and the season finale of Lovecraft Country on HBO. We also got the real-life horror of Keith Raniere's sex cult on The Vow on HBO and Seduced inside the NXIVM Cult on STARZ. But before we get to all that, I'm Randy.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Les.
And we're the TV Dudes. Guys, before we do anything else, before we talk about... First of all, we're a little ahead of our Halloween, but just all the shows...
This is the early
spooky,
Halloween.
They hit us a little early, and you know, we're feeling our October a little bit. But before we get to anything else, let's address the big news in TV that just hit today.
Quibi finally hit Apple TV! Woohoo, Quibi! Quibi's gonna live! Quibi's gonna kick ass. Now, this has been what this company has needed this entire fucking time, is to finally be on televisions.
Les, I just sent you another link. You might check that one. It was literally like, it was 10 minutes after the story you were just talking about.
Getting a screenshot of this reaction.
I love, Quibi is like, it is in itself the perfect story. Like, they're telling us a story. It's a comedy of errors. They got on Apple TV literally the day before they decide they're going to shut down.
We got one day to make this. It's like Empire Records, but in the Quibi headquarters.
Right.
And it was all about getting it put on Apple TV, which they wanted to do the whole time. But there was like the evil overlord guy who's like, no, it's just on your phone.
It's like if the kids finally got raised all the money to put on the show, and then somebody came in and was like, show's canceled.
I mean, at the end of the Goonies, when the ship runs, you know, the ship finally sails off, and like the kid empties his pockets with all the jewels, and the parents are like, "That's great, but we sold the house 3 hours ago."
Or if at the end of Star Wars, Han Solo shows up and shoots Darth Vader's like, "You're all clear, kid. Let's go home," and then the Death Star blows up Yavin. Yeah.
Classic ending.
That'd be a fun fan edit.
I feel like, I love anthologies, and so I feel like what happened at Quibi is the greatest commitment to a framing bit I've ever seen. Because, they had a lot of great comedy writers making a lot of great shows, and then they had one team, Watchmen style, that was off on an island writing the actual story of Quibi. Because really, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. They got on Apple TV literally yesterday. Closed. I feel like these kids literally came out of a back room having not shared their plan with anyone and worked on it for months, and are like, "We got the Apple deal, guys. Why has everybody got boxes?"
There is nothing about the Quibi that does not fill me with hilarity, except for just how much money these idiots wasted that could have been used for anything else.
Anything. They could have burned this money to keep homeless people warm, and it would have been better.
So the one thing that's left is they tried to sell it. They tried to sell the content. They tried to sell what they had. They couldn't. So the question
I told you about the content, right?
That's right. They don't own the content, but they were still trying to sell it.
That's right.
So I'm hoping that in a little while we'll get some deals made and some of this content will make its way to Netflix, because there's some good stuff in there. But because of the weird Quibi format and because of the stink of death that is Quibi, I'm not sure any of it's ever going to get picked up anywhere. Also,
Quibi Kai never dies.
Quibi Kai.
Man. So a TV dude salute to Quibi. You fuckers are so stupid.
It's crazy that within a year we have seen this thing birthed into the world, into 2020, and then we watched it slowly die, making jokes every step of the way. And now we're just like staring at this corpse that's like still kind of, flinching on the ground, flapping around
it's like
a
Swiss
dead
Army
fish.
Man. Every once in a while, it lets out a comically long fart. We're like, oh yeah.
At least we didn't do that rebrand we were talking about. We're going to be the Queeby dudes.
The Queeby dudes. I'm just bummed it didn't stick around longer because I feel like in a couple of years, like literally nobody's going to remember this, so you won't be able to make jokes about it anymore.
That's right. This episode.
If it would have lived a little longer, we could have
capsule.
had lots of comedy. Yeah.
All right. Well, we come here not to salute Quibi, but to bury it, just like the people who buried it the day after they got on Apple TV.
Viking funeral, preservation through destruction.
But it is time, as always, for the power rankings.
Da-da-da. Man, guys, you think our Halloween episode's coming early? The internet has been like early Halloween and all over the place.
2020's been a horror show since January. I mean, talk about jumping the gun.
It's a madhouse out there. It's a haunted madhouse, if you may. And I'm like going through the cobwebs of each room, searching around the IMDb's, the Metacritic, the Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm pulling in all these internet rankings because we can't be in charge of ranking TV shows. There's too many. We've seen 135 shows this year, including Marble Races. So we rely on these websites. They give us the definitive, this is what the internet thinks, and we just get the most absurd rankings. But guys, the first ranking this week, which is actually the show we talked about last week, is not very absurd at all, because this seems like the perfect spot for this, and that is Big Dogs over on Netflix. Yeah, that's pretty far down. It's 127 out of the 135 shows we've watched.
Sandwiched between Departure and the 30 Rock special, two things we hated.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine Big Dogs on Peacock?
So here's what I think is perfect about Big Dogs. Not only is it ranked like super low, it's 127 out of 135, but two of the places didn't even bother to rank it, which I think epitomizes what Big Dogs is. You haven't watched it, and if you have watched it, you're sad about it.
Yeah, you're split on whether or not it was a show.
Or if you have watched it, I commend you for having watched so much more TV before getting to this. Because this is some bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I assume you ran out of
what's happening.
Yeah, you got tired of talking to your handprint Ball Wilson, and
yeah.
Did you finish out Big Dogs? How bored?
You've already finished the Dogatecture show on Quibi, where they remodel dog houses for celebrities.
Yeah, I mean,
episode 1, Joel McHale.
Big Dogs is some day 1000 time loop television.
So something we talked about last week that we all liked a lot more than this list would reflect. It's let's see, their score is 229 out of 400. And it puts it 113 on our list. That's Star Trek Lower Decks.
I am shocked this is so low.
Yeah.
My Star Trek fans love this show.
And this has been one because we've talked about it a couple times, and I've checked the scores every time. It has not changed a whole lot. Some other ones that we're going to talk about have been shifting, which is kind of cool. But yeah, kind of bummed to not see more love for that out there.
I'm really surprised.
Yeah. No, guys, we are going to shoot far up the list into
we're going
into
far.
Top.
We're far.
Yeah.
We far go, Kyle.
That's how far we're gonna go.
Up with a bullet.
Number 48, top 50 now. Tied actually with no one in its own spot. Number 48, right there by the capture and upload is Fargo season 4 over on FX. Which admittedly I still haven't watched yet. God, I'm so behind, and I know I'm gonna love it the second I get on that, but I just feel like there's so much other stuff got to burn through first.
Yep.
Let's see, what else did we talk about last week? Looks like there was only one more show, and this is the one where I was watching the scores, and this one actually just spiked up a little bit after the initial season came out, but that is number 22 on our list, The Boys. Season 2 over on Amazon.
I'm not surprised. That one definitely got a bit more buzz on its second season.
Yeah.
And just
that
to
season
give you
just
an
got better and better.
to give you an idea about what the internet loves, this is tied with Tiger King over on Netflix. Which,
Absolutely.
say what you want about the story, the internet loved that show.
It's true. It's true.
And it shows in the memes. It shows
hear
in
me out.
the rankings.
The internet loves a mashup. We love a good crossover, right? So, Project V, Tiger King, and how much more he could get done if everybody working there were tiger proof or super fast. Or
we don't know how Compound V intersects with meth. We don't know what could happen there.
an invisible dude and a dead cat. You get another 3 months out of that exhibit.
I would love just the cameo of Joe Exotic on The Boys.
Absolutely.
Where he's like
He
some
should audition for the
out of
Seven.
control superhero that can control animals and stuff.
What's
You
your
gotta
power?
stop him.
Getting these 3 dudes to marry me, and cats love me.
You know what? You're in.
I can control animals and meth heads.
Do you have any? Are you bulletproof? I'm resistant to meth.
I've been shot a bunch and I'm still
Been
alive.
shot a
Does that
bunch.
count?
There's
We
only
thought
one,
one of the workers here was going to regenerate an arm, but nope.
There's only one thing I'm vulnerable to, and you know what that is? That bitch Carol Baskins.
It's my kryptonite. Oh, that's so funny.
Well, Kyle-
She's getting the last laugh though over there on Cameo. Don't know if you've
Dance with the Stars,
yeah.
right?
Oh, and that too. She's cashing in on this.
Yeah.
The only one not in jail.
Kyle, thank you as always for the power rankings.
Yeah, for sure.
This seems like a good time to remind you that you can go over to patreon.com/tvdudes, throw us a buck an episode, and in exchange, we get to keep up with all our streaming services and pay for our hosting costs, and you get bonus content each week. This week, we're going to talk, we're going to tie into our discussion of Haunting of Bly Manor, and we're going to talk about the films of writer-director Mike Flanagan.
Mm-hmm. The Flanaganiverse.
The Flanaganiverse. We also have our $20 showrunner level, which lets you add a couple shows into our rotation.
You
we
can
have a
even
couple
pick big
people-
dogs.
You
Not
pick
again. You
big
can't pick it
dogs.
twice. You can't do it again.
We've got a couple people who have their second show decisions to make, and we all definitely have room for a new showrunner or two if you've got some shows you think we should watch. But now it is time to talk new business, and let's start with one of the hotly anticipated shows, the spine of our Halloween episode, and that is The Haunting of Bly Manor over on Netflix. This is
That's way too vicious a laugh for this show.
You call
This is
this
a much
a
more gothic
Spy
romance.
noir?
a what?
Do you call it a spy noir?
No,
Oh, I thought that's what you just
the
said.
spine of our show.
Spine of our.
Oh, I
Yes.
was like, interesting interpretation of the
Spinal.
show, Randy.
Oh yeah,
Yes, no, I-
sorry, I was accidentally watching Alias for the third time. What were we supposed to watch this
Okay.
week?
It's Alias, but half those characters are dead. So figure out which ones are ghosts.
So
Ailey Sixth Sense.
this last year or 2 years ago, we had Haunting of Hill House, Mike Flanagan's show on Netflix, which I adored. It was one of my favorite shows that year. I've been anxiously awaiting the return, which is doing sort of an American Horror Story thing. They're using some of the same cast with different roles, completely different story. It's based on a British novel instead of the Shirley Jackson novel that the Hill House was based on.
Yeah, this is based on Turn of the Screw by Henry James.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys thought about this. I was a little let down at first, but came around by the end.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Yeah.
I found the presentation of the show to be pretty captivating. Like, definitely slow burn, but about 2-3 episodes in, I really found myself like, oh, I want to know what's going to happen next. And a lot of that has to do that it doesn't follow a linear structure.
Yeah.
A lot of the story doesn't work unless you get kind of the ending first. And it's really pretty in that way. But then too, once you kind of get the whole story, you start putting it together like chronologically, and you're like, wait a second. So some of this kind of big picture stuff, but I feel like episodically, it kept me really interested all the way up to the finale, which I'm sure we'll talk about at the end. But yeah, no, I thought this was like a lot more solid than similar offerings I've seen kind of pop up throughout the year.
How do you rank it compared to Hill House? Would you say better, worse, about the same?
Oh, I'm so unprofessional. Everybody told me Hill House was scary, so I didn't watch it.
Oh,
yeah.
crazy! It is. It's a lot scarier. This is not.
Actually, wait. I think I watched the first episode or two of it, and it felt a lot like The Conjuring. And I was like, oh gosh,
yeah,
it is a lot more of a jump scare, scary ghost.
It's a lot scarier.
This is more Crimson Peak.
Okay.
I really liked Bly Manor, and I really, really liked Hill House. I had a lot of trust going into this that Mike Flanagan, even if it's a slow burn and not quote unquote like bloody, gory, scary, that it would still just be absolutely fascinating, like Del Toro's Crimson Peak. And so, even though at first it felt slower to me, and very much more like, oh, okay, this is going to be more of a gothic romance, like ghosts or tragic regrets and memories you can't let go of, like, got it, it's going to be more like that. It's still so beautiful and so well acted and so nicely structured, like Kyle was saying, like episodically, even though it's not like it's the world's most complicated setup or anything, like it still moves you along through it really well. I saw some people talk about not really getting hooked until like I was barely into it, and then the 5th episode happened, or the 6th episode happened. I think I was into it by the 2nd episode. It had clicked that no, it's not the show, it's not Hill House, it's not quite as like threatening horror to me.
That was a surprise for me. I found myself interested and like kind of curious by the scary stuff, because none of it's like over the top frightening, but like especially they play with reflections a lot. And a lot of that was used really well. It just looked cool in like a creepy way, and I just found myself like kind of glued to it.
Flanagan makes a beautiful movie or show or whatever. It's just gorgeous. Also, I really like the mechanic of how ghosts work in this show. And I like that about Hill House as well, but it's a slightly different mechanic of how it's working. But like when you read a fantasy novel and you go, oh, the way magic works in this world is really, really neat. It's not maybe enough to sell an entire thing, but it's always a huge like selling point for me on stuff. And I like the way the ghosts work when you finally see how it all comes together. Also, there was a moment, I don't want to get into spoilers, but there was a moment when something about the au pair clicked. And I that she had her own past, and maybe not everything was Bly Manor, maybe like what she running from in the States.
Well, there was
when all that started to come together for me, I really liked that addition into it of like, oh, cool. There's complexities beyond the house.
You definitely get to a point with the story where you're like, oh wait, everybody's got something going on.
Yeah.
Like, and they kind of dish that out slowly, but it is interesting to see how everybody's connection kind of to this haunting or a haunting, of some type.
I loved seeing Rahul.
Yeah, Rahul.
Oh, shit, I'm blanking on his name. Ravi from iZombie.
Rahul Kohli.
Yes, he is great. He's super fun to follow on Twitter and on social media.
Yeah,
he's a huge gaming nerd. He's really fun to follow. Either way, he's great on iZombie. I loved him as Robbie, and this role is so good, and I'm so glad that he got it and got to do it, because it's a character. Owen is a character that I just fell in love with and was like, oh, I just love that guy. He's great, and so yeah, I thought it was like that's the kind of role that actors want to get. I mean, playing villains is, I'm sure, delicious and amazing and evil and wonderful, but playing a character that audiences are just going to fall in love with has to be cool.
So it's interesting because my hot take, my overall on this, I came around to it. I did wind up really liking the ending, and I do think there's only one way you can tell the story, and that is this way. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong. Like, you couldn't have done any more clear. Like, you had to slow burn it to get to the meat of it. But for me, I am one of those people who it did not grab me by the throat, until episode 6. When I started to see, oh, this is what's been going on. Because there's little hints of what's going on with the kids. But I was like, are they just weird little precocious kids? Or is there a thing? Because I thought there was.
That's the game of the story. Like, that's the game of turn of the screw. Is that it never lets up whether or not the au pair is crazy or it's happening. Like, are these kids being weird or are these kids possessed? And you don't know.
Yeah,
that's the game of the story. And so I was kind of interested to see if they were going to ever ever actually commit one way or the other, and I was going to be super fucking mad at, like, that's fun on a 100-page story.
Right.
That gets old in a series. You need to let me know if ghosts are real or not. So I was very glad that they do commit, but yeah, that game I felt like they had to let go on for a little while as a nod to the source.
So we'll get a little bit into spoiler territory here. Episode 4 is the one where we see the flashback to Danny and her fiance, and that moment of her fiance like going from a breakup to an even worse day. That was really well shot and just spectacularly done, and was just shocking. And that was the first time that show like really grabbed me. And then the next episode is Hannah Gross, the housekeeper, and all the big and the weird like time jumpy stuff. And I was honestly, and maybe I'm just a little dumb, I was a little bit lost on that one. I think that what I discovered as I kept going was that what I really wanted was to rewatch the whole thing, knowing now what I know about at the end.
What memories are and what being tucked away is.
Yeah, what all that stuff is, because he's showing us he plays fair with us, but like there's no way, you don't have the information and the context you need, and knowing that
similarly the red door, the red room in Hill House, you go back and watch it knowing what that is. It's different. It's a different show.
Well, it feels like you're a ghost and you want to help and you have like a little bit of influence, but every time you get close to like making some change or like helping some person, you get kind of pulled away.
Yeah.
And it's like this idea of like you can't actually touch anything without, your time getting messed up or your form getting messed up.
But what I'll say is anyone who watched, I saw some friends, one of our friends, Johnny Neal, former TV dude, was just raking this thing over the coals. Johnny's got weird taste sometimes, but he was just he didn't even finish watching it. He was so annoyed with it. And then I saw other people talking about it was slow and that kind of thing. And I feel like anyone who trusts Flanagan should watch it all the way to the end, because I was not sold on. I was liking it, but if this wasn't a Mike Flanagan show, I probably would not have finished watching it. And by the time I finished watching it, I was so happy I'd given it the chance, because I think episodes 7 through 10 are just when they get to the flashback, which I think is 7 or 8, the flashback revealing the true nature of the ghost and the manor and all that stuff, all the way up through the sort of romantic, heartbreaking ending that is both heartbreaking and hopeful at the same time. I think that whole thing is phenomenal. And it requires all the structure underneath it that is set up in those first 6 episodes. Like you have to have gone through the rest of it for that payoff to work. So it takes patience. It takes a patience a lot of TV doesn't ask for.
Right. So are we going to talk spoilers for a second on this?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, we got to go deep spoilers because it definitely gets to the end and you're like, what was that?
So mark it, dude, and jump ahead, folks. Give us a minute or two here.
I got timestamps. We're good.
Randy's going to show note it. So
you've been warned. Starting now.
So that, all right, when her boyfriend, fiance, gets hit by the car and they do the flash of light in his glasses.
Yeah.
And
you mean Elijah Wood in the Sin City movie?
Right. Exactly. He's fucking Kevin from the Sin City movie. I loved that setup of that ghost. His imagery in the shine in the glasses the whole time was great. Did anybody else catch him as in the very first time you see Danny? She almost steps into the street and the cab passes her, and he's in the reflection of the window of the cab.
Yeah.
I caught that. Yeah, that was good.
So what first hooked me into this show was somewhere around, I think, episode 3 or 4. It clicked for me, like maybe episode 3. This is not the Manor's ghost.
Right.
She brought this with her. And I wasn't sure if it was a real ghost. Like I didn't know if it was like really, really haunting her, Bloody Mary style or some shit, or if it was just in her head. But either way, I was like, you brought this, whatever else is going on in this house, this part you brought. And it was that moment, I don't know, something deepened for me of like, oh shit. So whatever else is happening at Bly Manor has its own trajectory, and the wild card might be this woman's baggage.
Hey, real quick, how did she shake him? Because I swear
she literally comes to terms with him. Like,
oh, that's what that, because she had kind of a Doctor Who-y Stephen Moffat standoff with him, where she was like, I'm not afraid anymore.
Yeah, she has a very like it's not my fault that this happened to you.
Yeah.
But it's a very standing up to her.
It's interesting that her ghost operated on different mechanics than the ghosts in the manor, even though the reflection thing definitely plays in to the end of the story. But without talking about that, I have a lot of questions for you guys about kind of the story within the story of it all, okay? And how we get Jet in episode 1, and she's our, our narrator throughout the
and she's
whole
our
of
gardener.
it.
And she's Irish for some reason.
Well, okay, so that was my question. So they cast different actors to play the same characters,
but
they reveal who all those characters are in the season finale.
Yeah.
That I was a little lost on me.
Oh, I love that. I saw it coming right before they revealed it. I'm like, I'm like, wait a minute. This is the only way she knows. And she's Irish. She's got the accent. The only way she knows this story is if she's one of the people in the story. Who is she? Oh, of course.
I deeply wanted her to be a ghost.
Oh man, I mean they definitely.
Oh, I thought that could have been cool.
But I realized they weren't at Bly Manor. They were just at a different place. Right. But I was like, oh man, if they were still at Bly Manor and this is the one remaining ghost that isn't trapping people but is just still here and is keeping the story alive. Yeah. And like I don't want to lose my face, so I keep telling everybody the story that'll listen.
That's the thing, Les. When they did the reveal, because they talked about them being at a castle for a wedding and how there's a haunting story and all that stuff, and I thought maybe they're going to reveal it. Basically, they changed the name of the place. But that this was Bly Manor.
But this was Bly. You'd never find a place by that name.
Yeah, and so I they didn't go that way, but I thought that, but it was the accent that sort of gave her away. It was like, oh, that's probably the gardener, and not our lead.
What I don't understand is in a story of, in a show of spooky stories and superstitions and stuff, what psycho couple hangs out drinking together the night before their wedding? Got a big day tomorrow, better get to bed. Like, y'all are sitting together in like, why are you anyway? Doomed.
No, it had like a really sweet and tragic ending, and especially if you invested in all the episodes.
Yeah.
Like when you got to the ending of the story within the story, here's the thing, that outer story was cute, but it could probably work without it.
Yeah. But no, but the thing is, I disagree. I actually think that romantic ending of the look how things turned out for everybody else is what really nailed down the ending. Like, I have some issues with Hill House's ending, to be honest. Not to spoil it for Kyle, but I don't think it was the perfect ending. No. Whereas I was like, that ending was great. I was very happy with it.
No, I loved giving everybody where everybody landed and ended up. I didn't need it to necessarily be Flora.
Oh, but I liked that.
But that was the encourage.
Because
I think it really is the Flora, because they said the kids don't remember shit anymore.
Yeah, well, they said she. Yeah. Well, I mean, they basically outright said it was her, right? Like it's.
Yeah. How did you know? My middle name is Flora. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I liked that because it showed that she wasn't damaged by what had happened. I think that was part of the point, is that she got out of all the stuff that could have been really traumatizing.
Was the guy that they cast, was that actually supposed to be an older Owen?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
They cast an actor that looked basically like a completely different same age dude.
Yeah, that was
exactly.
I thought that was a little weird, but I'm like, but then they show us the flash. I'm like, okay.
Everybody else was, but I was like, that's super weird. Because I had a moment of like, does she just think all Indian dudes are the same?
Yeah. What if it's not? What if that was?
And it's you, Cowardly Lion, and you, Scarecrow, and like
it was just a nod to the audience. That was a totally different dude.
Well, no, when that guy gave a nod, and then I thought about the toast at the beginning, I was like, oh, actually, this guy is giving a performance very similar to the other character. Yeah, I see. There's something there.
But you're right.
So I love seeing where everybody landed, but I'm glad that this story has that kind of gothic, like someone should be fake telling it to you as a viewer. Like it has a very like, and listen, gentle reader, vibe to it. Yeah. And so I loved that, but I think it felt a little bit contrived to me, because it felt built to use the like, well, we've got Carla Gugino coming back, so I want to find something for her to do. Let's do it. And it felt a little contrived.
I do want to say there was while there were a couple big episodes, the flashback episode revealing the nature of the ghost, the sort of story of what was going on with Flora's dad, as it turns out, like that
Henry
stuff
Wingrave.
that was interesting, but I don't think there's one single episode here that is like has the power and the scares and the holy shit of the bent neck lady from Hill House. Like,
no,
I don't think it'll reach those
for my
heights.
brand of horror, I liked Hill House a lot better.
Yeah.
That said, I love both of these. They are class act, great additions to the horror
for sure.
Genre.
Yeah, if there had not been a Hill House, I think I would have been blown away by this.
I like Bly Manor, I think, better than Dr. Sleep.
This actually
Yeah.
kind of felt like Lock and Key to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which is funny because so season 1 with Hill House, the co-showrunner was Meredith Averill, who we interviewed at ATX Fest a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So she co-show ran it with Flanagan because he'd not done TV before. And then she departed to go showrun the incarnation of Lock and Key that actually made it to air.
Interesting.
And so she's not a showrunner. Like, oddly, their shared DNA left and is not on Bly Manor.
Yeah. But it kind of felt like this is really lowbrow, or not lowbrow, but like much lower than I'm trying to hit at, but it'll give you kind of the idea, like kind of an Are You Afraid of the Darkish level of horror, where it was just like genre enough to, oh, cool, I'm watching something scary, but really it's just more interesting than anything else.
This is a spooky ghost story that is interesting and tragic and romantic, but
I
it's
really
not
like
scary blood. It's not fucking Insidious.
Right.
I like the label gothic that you guys have been putting on it, because I feel like that's a really good way to describe the story.
Yeah, for sure.
Nobody breaks their own leg casts off and then walks on the crunching bones across the hallway to choke the life out of you.
For instance.
For instance, hypothetically.
For instance.
All right. So
real quick, last observation. Was Henry Thomas in the first season?
Yes, he's a big character in the first season, actually.
So, and was Amblin the production company the first season too?
I think so, but I don't know.
Because it's kind of crazy because he's in the Amblin logo. Because he's on the bike with E.T.
And weirdly, in season 1, they also did they didn't have a previous season's cast to be using, but they also did the different actor for an older version. It's Henry Thomas when they're in the past, when like all the kids are kids and it's their dad. But then there's also a second timeline, like present day, where the kids are adults and they've all got PTSD fallout from their childhood, basically.
Yeah.
And Henry Thomas's dad has grown into Timothy Hutton.
It is sad there's no Timothy Hutton in here, right? He didn't have any.
Yeah, that was the guy I remembered from the Hill House.
And I remember thinking it was weird that you could have easily just aged Henry Thomas up, but
yeah. All right, so let's change topics and let's go to the next family dysfunction possession show that we watched this week, and that is Marvel's Helstrom over on Hulu.
This family show about a really bad dad.
This is the vestigial organ of Jeff Loeb's Marvel TV, the last remaining shake.
It is, and so this was part of Marvel was very careful to say that this is not horror, that they called this their adventure into fear.
Yeah,
and it was supposed to be about heroes that are, so the show's not itself necessarily horror, but the hero is generally feared by everybody he's trying to help, which is a lot of Marvel heroes, really. But they were going to do this show. I mean, Daredevil scares the shit out of people. They were going to do this show and Ghost Rider, and they canceled Ghost Rider. And kind of like Tom Cruise's The Mummy, this is now the only show in a shared universe whose partner show went away. It is technically part of the MCU, though in every television version that is never capitalized on, and I don't know. That's not really a selling point.
Here's the thing: the TV version of here's how it works. The TV shows consider themselves parts of the MCU. The movies do not consider the TV shows part of the MCU.
Which kind of fits for the family dynamic in Hellstrom of like, I'm related to you. No, are you though?
No. So
I don't think so anymore.
So I don't know where you guys were though. I only got through 5 episodes of this, and
I am on episode 6, and I have I have a very clear idea of what could be done to make Helstrom like a 75% better show.
Would it be to get rid of Damon Helstrom and make Anna the lead?
So there's that. So the show tries
Sky Captain of Tomorrow.
Basically, the show I feel like tries to be kind of judicious as it goes on about splitting time between them. But Anna is phenomenally the more interesting character.
Yep.
And Damien is the sad sack who doesn't want to be here.
Yeah.
And he should be dragged along like John Hannah in the original Mummy, or not the original Mummy, the better Mummy.
Yeah.
And Satana, Anna, should be the main character. No, the thing that they should do, this thing is 10 episodes long. It should be 7.
Yeah.
There's only like 2 things in episodes 1 and 2 that should be rolled in that you need to have.
Yep.
Like, you need to find the skull. There's a skull at the start that kicks the whole storyline off. You need to find that skull. And then just a couple of little establishing things for the siblings. If they had just pushed that into episode 3 and had it kick off in like 3, you would have hit the ground running in a show that would have had a bunch of creepy shit with the mom. Like,
the mom's great. Elizabeth Marvel is really good.
I didn't mind 1 and 2. I didn't mind episodes 1 and 2, but there wasn't anything in there that couldn't have been done faster in 3. And then I would have hit the ground going, oh shit, this show's at a breakneck pace, because the show is never going to win on sheer horror. Marvel's never going to commit. It's not going to be. I don't know if y'all ever watched the Exorcist TV show they did.
I watched an episode.
Surprisingly better than it ever needed to be. Like Sleepy Hollow was. Like, it just didn't need to be this good.
Yeah.
And because I remember being shocked going, this is on regular TV and it is horror. This is creepy.
Yeah.
And I realized a couple episodes in that, oh shit, Helstrom's not going to... Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. horror is never going to be what I think of as horror.
Yeah.
And that I shouldn't be any madder at it necessarily than Bly Manor. It's just not going to be a balls out horror show. That said, I wanted to go faster then.
Here's my thing. You're pacing. You're not wrong, but I honestly think the biggest flaw of the show is that they're too big. They're nominal leads. Damon Helstrom and Gabriella Rossetti are the most boring. They're the most boring characters, both of them. And I don't think that's the actor's fault. I think that's the writing. I think that's the characters. But if they had steered into the more, like, they've got Bunny, for God's sake. They got Bunny Colvin from The Wire playing this caretaker character, and he's great. They've got
Robert Wisdom as caretaker, which they redid caretaker a lot from the comics, as I understand it.
And
he's great.
June Carroll playing Dr. Hastings is great. She's just basically done with all the Helstrom shit. And Anna
she inherited this mess and is just done with it. I love it.
If they had done something where, first of all, they got rid of like most of episode 1 and 2, hit the ground running in 3, and then in episode 4 kill off Damon and Gabriella, and Anna is left to run this thing, I'd have been in. Like, that would have gotten me. Because as is, this is like a watered down version of both Lucifer and Evil. And I can watch better versions of this show on either one of those. And I'm like, Lucifer's helping the LAPD. I have my issues with Lucifer as well, but there is no way that you've got Lucifer and Evil and Supernatural and all these people doing this show better. And I'm like, why did you bother doing this?
Every time I start to completely fade off of it, either I love June's great. I just interviewed her again, and so either Dr. Hastings will pop on screen, and I'll be like, all right, I'll put up for a little bit longer because I love June, or they'll do something that is a really cool idea. It's in a show that is not wowing me, but there's been a handful of things. So there's a point where they find a body, the siblings, and they are low-grade telekinetic. And I don't know how I've never seen this done in any other show, but they have to dispose of this body, and they have a box that is a certain size. It is not body-sized, and Anna telekinetically levitates the body and then just starts folding the legs in in this god-awful crunch noise and just compacts the body in midair and drops it in the box. And I was like, oh shit, how have I never seen that before? That is great. I like her assistant kind of getting Renfielded, like getting Dracula. Yeah, he's great. Unfortunately, the show is Jeff Loeb attached, which means that I can't separate out the stuff that came out at the same Comic-Con that they were advertising this at. I think actually it was at a con across town, not Comic-Con at home, but where it got revealed that Loeb apparently is the reason that they didn't follow Madame Gao's storyline in Iron Fist. They didn't follow the Hands storyline, despite making them a huge part of it. Whatever ideas there were for mixed race Danny Rand were quashed by Loeb. Like, he's just a shitty guy in that respect.
Yep.
It sounds like. And so it's like, man, stop letting him make fucking TV.
Oh,
Yep.
Real quick side note, great biracial casting for Iron Fist is the kid from Never Have I Ever, the like teenage heartthrob kid.
Yeah,
who's already got MCU abs. Yeah.
He'd be good.
MCU abs. I'm enjoying how there was another...
Can I take a cheap shot at this show real quick? Sorry.
Oh, go for it.
I've been holding this joke in ever since I started watching. Tom Austin, who plays Damian Helstrom, I get this feeling that he also auditioned for The Deep in The Boys. And I just could not see him in the like that deep outfit, like sexually harassing women
hiding
and like
his
joining
gills.
a cult. And yeah.
So can I take a cheap shot at this show? The guy running it, the showrunner, has been a co-executive producer of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for 43 episodes.
Ooh.
And was an
That track.
executive producer for 27 more. So
So some of the... I really like the... Caretaker's group is keeping people sidelined that are possessed, and it's nuts. I don't know how I've never quite seen that done before. And then what happens with that group of people is also nuts, and one of those, like, I can't believe in 8 million seasons that Supernatural's not already done this. Like, there are interesting ideas in this show. I feel like it is in a show that has guardrails up and can't go as nuts as I want it to go.
Yeah.
It's the scary end of Doctor Strange, and I need it to be scarier.
The most disappointing thing about this is that this is IP that people are familiar with. They should be bringing something new to this, but it just feels so much like a bunch of other shows we've watched.
And here's the thing: I've got friends who are fans of, like, Son of Satan, which is what Damon Helstrom started as. He's never been an A-list character. He has at best been C-list. And then Warren Ellis did a retake on him, and this is in a vein of that Warren Ellis retake. But even that was still basically B-list at best. Like, there's not anybody... There's not a ton of people out there who are like, oh, my favorite character, Helstrom, is getting a show. Which meant that you had the freedom to do whatever you want. But what they did instead was something so bland that even someone who likes Helstrom is going to go, well, that's not what I wanted. And nobody else is coming in and replacing them and going, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't even know there were comics. It's not like the Keanu Reeves Constantine, where it bears no resemblance to the comic book character, but is its own fun thing. No, this bears very little resemblance to the comic character and also is not interesting on its own. It's a failure on both fronts.
Is this a situation where the DC movies for a while were trying to be like the Marvel movies? Is the Marvel TV trying to be like the Berlanti shows?
It does.
Like they
feel
have to
that
have
way,
their own
yeah.
Constantine?
I think this might be Marvel trying something new with Hulu.
Yeah.
Because apparently this whole thing came about because Marvel was canceling all their Netflix shows. They saw Runaways and were like, do that.
Yeah.
We want another one of those.
Yeah.
So my biggest fear was that Helstrom would be suddenly stupid. The way that Runaways just was suddenly dumb and like, oh, fuck, y'all just lost the thread. And it's not done that. It's just not been as exciting as I wanted it to be, especially when Hulu dropped like 4 Blumhouse horror movies and shit, and then a Marvel show that looks spooky and is just not completely there.
Yeah.
Apparently, Elizabeth Marvel, the mom, that's just her fucking voice. She just does that voice, and she does a vocal. She said this in the Comic Con at home. She does a vocal warm up to be able to do that voice, her weird demon voice, her weird possessed voice. And her vocal warm up is apparently utterly terrifying.
Is it just
to the point that she did it in a tent where they had mics, where she was alone in the tent. She was doing her vocal warm up, and crew called in people who showed up because they thought it was a bear. Like they thought a bear had gotten in, and so she turned around and what shit. And apparently the set itself was a lot of the actors in the Comic-Con complained about, or not complained, but talked about really, really creeping themselves out on set for the asylum set. My main issue with the show is the nun, the novitiate or whatever.
Yeah.
She at no point looks like a fucking nun.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Doesn't he make a comment about that at one point? You're like a sexy nun or something?
I just don't. I wish they had given me instead the makeupless 70s nun that smokes cigarettes and makes jokes you wouldn't think a nun would make. Like, go with that trope instead. But instead you just found like the world's sweetest Hispanic girl who's clearly a nun novitiate who used to work in sex trafficking. When she told the sex trafficking story, my eyes rolled back hard enough to think I was possessed.
All right, you guys want to talk about some real world horror instead?
Yep.
Let's talk about The Vow and its competing STARZ documentary. So, The Vow on HBO just hit episode 9, which is the final episode of season 1, because they're going to do a season 2, which is weird.
No.
Yep.
Oh, I bet they're going to go the whole route of like the trial.
The trial was what everybody's guessing.
And I can believe that, but the way that they end this season, I am deeply worried that they are now going to talk to Keith, and I don't give a fuck what Keith says.
Yeah, I have the same worry too.
In fact,
at the end, I'm like, if they are talking,
proven that his superpower is talking. Don't talk to Keith.
Yeah, that's the thing. I got to the end of that too, and I was like, man, if you guys are going to give this motherfucker any airtime at all, I'm not going to watch this. He can't be allowed to talk to people. No. He will talk you out of this.
There is a part of me that goes, if you want him in prison, like I can't think of a worse place. Like he would have everybody in the prison like giving him BJs and doing whatever he wants in like no time flat.
I would hope that it would. I would hope that he would get to prison and it would be like an entire building of guys going, I don't give a fuck about your self-help bullshit.
Yeah,
shut up.
Yes.
Like, and guys who just see through it.
What does that mean? What does it mean to not give a fuck? I'm deeply afraid it wouldn't be.
I'm deeply afraid that it would be half of a building full of people who really want to reevaluate their lives, and he would just be easy pickings. Yeah. Because I'm so like, Manson's in jail.
Yeah.
Manson never, and the sticking point that people bring up on Manson is that Charles Manson never killed anyone.
Yeah.
Not a soul. He is definitely in jail, and he is definitely the mastermind of a gang of people who killed people. But he got other people to do it. Keith Raniere, just because we don't know of anybody that Doss ever killed or that they've ever killed, just because they've never killed anybody, he's more dangerous to me than Manson.
Yeah, although
he looks more normal.
Yeah.
His influence is a lot bigger. His gang is a lot more powerful than Squeaky and all of her pals.
Yeah. Where they talk about him cutting his hair and redoing the documentary, that gave me chills.
And putting the people talking about it back through all their trigger shit, like making that guy talk about getting his ears cut off again so that you can re-record it with shorter hair.
Yeah. So let's talk about The Vow as a construct, because I actually think the story of NXIVM, like the sex cult, when I first heard about this is the sex cult that Allison Mack from Smallville was involved with.
Yep, I heard about it because of Mack's arrest.
And I'm like, oh, well, I'm curious about that for that reason. And as we started watching this, I don't think there are any heroes in this piece. Like the guy who filmed all of this, Mark, what's his name?
Mark Vicente.
Mark Vicente. I feel bad for everybody, but none of them are.
Yeah,
they're all victims, but they're all also culpable.
I feel bad for him, but at the same time, I'm like, dude, you and same with the women who like drag people in a DOS, like
Sarah Edmondson.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'm glad she's got out. I'm glad she's easier, but she was complicit in so much of this shit, and they don't seem to be. I mean, maybe they just didn't want to show this to us, but they didn't show us any of their.
Mark breaks down.
He does one.
Mark breaks down a couple of times,
but it's a. I feel bad for myself for being involved in this, and it's not. What did I do so much? It is like, oh, am I not a good person? I'm like, no, motherfucker, you're not.
Well, I think if you get into kind of the whole psychology of being in a cult and then getting out of a cult, it is they wrapped up so much of their identity into it by design, which I actually think this is where the Seduced documentary does a way better job explaining like how somebody could do this.
I agree.
Because they really were brainwashed and people are making jokes at their expense and it's like, shit, man, but I made my wife sleep in a dog bed on the floor.
Yeah. The Vow only barely touches on the neuro-linguistic programming and stuff like that Nancy brings in to Keith's bullshit.
And that's
and how that stuff works. And There's a scene, I think, in the final one where they're talking to the people in the coffee shop. Bonnie and Mark are talking to strangers in the coffee shop of like, no, people we had good positive experiences like the first few times. Like, nobody. I think Mark says it at one point. Like, nobody joins a cult.
Yeah. Which, by the way, that's
you
wrong.
join a group of. The way to put that is you are recruited into a cult.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the guy handing out flyers for the cult is standing in front of the Scientology building every day across the street from UT with the IQ test or the stress test or whatever they're calling it that year.
Yeah.
He's there every day and watching you for the day that you put off that you're a susceptible enough vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're in the same way that abusers can watch for that vulnerable kid.
But
they're watching for you.
I think that's one of my issues with the vow as sort of as a storytelling technique, though, is that they kept going over the same material over and over again and coming at it from different angles. They didn't tell us a cohesive story the way, say, like McMillions did. Like, they introduced. I would have liked them to introduce the characters in the first couple and then tell us the story. But instead, they keep jumping over. And by the way, our lead, the woman who's trying to get her daughter back, not India, but
Catherine Oxenberg.
Catherine is. I mean, she's an actress, and she's a literal princess, and she's
royalty,
and she comes off as someone sort of entitled and privileged, and I
I've screamed at my TV at her so much through the series.
Can I say something about her, because I feel like her involvement in the story is very integral, because once you see kind of what's going on, at least for me, I could not get this out of my head, but Mark Vicente and his wife are pretty much just freeloading in Malibu off this woman the entire documentary.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's like staying in her guest room, like waking up with her beach views, having coffee on her veranda.
She is their Seagram's heir. The Seagram's heir comes in and funds NXIVM, and then Catherine comes in and funds the opposition.
And sadly, if there wasn't an opposition funding source, you couldn't go against NXIVM.
Yeah, no, you'd be screwed.
Yeah.
You'd be Frank. You'd be the Frank report.
Yeah, and so I respect what Catherine brings to it, but at the same time, her reason for doing this is not like something noble and good. She's not like, I'm going to bring down this evil cult. It's, I want to get my daughter out of this. And if her daughter wasn't involved, she wouldn't be involved.
And I'm sorry, like, I'm glad that I'm shocked at the existence of the other documentary, because I would have sworn on a stack of Bibles that India would never get out and that she would be in jail with Allison Mack. That this would be pinned. I felt like they were prepping to pin this on her, and I guess they pinned it on Mack instead. Though Mack's initials are in the fucking brand.
It's pretty wild to hear what like India says in this documentary and then see the one with her.
Yeah.
But that said, I yelled at my TV at Catherine Oxenberg so many times that your daughter is not a fucking child.
Yeah, yeah.
She is, yes, technically your child. Your daughter is not a minor. Your daughter is a grown adult that has enslaved multiple other people and is still doing it. Yep. And you have pointed it out to her a dozen times.
Yep.
And you have gone to the FBI, and then you have called and compromised that fucking investigation technically by telling her that you've done this.
Yep.
And she still won't come with you. Your daughter is an adult.
Yep.
And it sucks, but I was kind of appalled at a certain point that like no other adults were going, hey, I know you want your kid out, but also
there's a bigger story.
At what point are we kidnapping another adult?
Yeah.
From where they want to be.
So I also
and I'm torn on that. I mean, I know it's an intervention and you want this person out, but like her daughter's an adult who's culpable in crimes.
I feel like because she was the funding and because she was the face, that she got a lot more time. Like, I got her story very quickly. Like, I understand. I understand. You don't have to keep telling me her story. I want to see more of the other I want to see more of the other stories, and I feel like we didn't get
really want to see the marriage counseling sessions between Nippy and Susan. I mean, sorry, Nippy and Sarah, but mostly Bonnie and Mark.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like, and the timeline's a little iffy because of the way they present the whole thing.
Which is a pain.
But there seems like about a year, probably.
Yeah.
Between Bonnie leaving, Bonnie being vilified, and Mark finally seeing it.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. But like you say, that's one of the things that's frustrating is the jumping around timeline. I don't know who that served, except to extend,
HBO.
except to extend the story, and that's frustrating. And I think that The Vow, for all that it was interesting and I did watch all the way through, is mostly a good grounding for Seduced, which I felt was a much stronger story.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I haven't started Seduced yet. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Seduced was the first. It's only the first episode we've watched.
Mm-hmm. So, real quick, presentation is the big difference. Which, granted, one's a television show, a series, and the other one's a film. But
no, Seduced.
No.
Seduced is multiple.
Seduced is multiple episodes.
Yeah, there's multiple episodes of Seduced.
They just only put out the first one so far.
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah, there's more of that.
Dang, I feel like the first episode of that pretty much covered everything The Vow did, and then some.
And the first episode of The Vow didn't even get you into any criminality. It just explained NXIVM like you might want to go take a fucking class.
Yep, exactly.
Which
that's the
I
thing.
did appreciate for the storytelling here, because they really want you to sympathize with people who could get involved with this.
That's kind of what I understood. Was like, well, they want you to understand that these people did not join an evil cult.
What's funny is
but
that didn't work for me. Because from minute one, and again, immediately I knew it was a cult. But from minute one, I'm watching NXIVM with their bullshit 7 Habits of Effective People, and I'm like, I would never. What the fuck? I would never. This already sounds like horse shit. Like at best, it sounds like a multi-level marketing scam, which of course it was.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't.
They really were getting commission for signing people up for classes. It really is a downline.
I have sympathy. I understand everybody's not me, and I know that everybody has a tendency to think, well, I never fall for that. But I watched this, and I'm like, man, how did you guys not catch on to this earlier? Because the way they presented it, even in The Vow, was
you got to be at the right spot in your life.
Yeah.
Not every kid is going to get in the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting. There's manipulation techniques that Keith uses in some of the video clips we see him in. One of the
Those
ones
things are also multiple day long. Yeah.
One that I found really captivating was one of the early meetings between him and Allison Mack, where at one point you see her start to be like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
And what does he do? He turns to one of his other minions and he makes reference to some obscure NXIVM thing, and the guy's like, yeah, it's like this thing, and blah, blah, blah. And now he's got everybody else talking to try to get her interested in what he has to say again, and he's not doing any of the work. And you get to see
He's just
that
waiting to see what she clicks on, and then he goes with that.
Yeah.
Before they get to kind of the full sinister Keith. But I think in terms of style, this reminded me a lot of the Catfish documentary, where it's very much centered around the creators of the documentary, which is kind of morphed into vlog culture now. This just has a much more captivating story than like your average vlog. But at the end of the day, you're essentially following, a handful of characters as they eat breakfast, as they drive in the car, as they type on their laptop, receive phone calls on speakerphone. And then there's a little bit of title cards and a little bit of graphics that kind of explain this really complicated structure, which I feel like is the interesting part. And I just wanted to say that before we got into Seduce, because I feel like that's where Seduce does something completely different.
Right. Before we get into Seduce fully, I do want to say Keith Raniere is one of the more punchable people I've seen on my television.
I'm sorry, but his David Foster Wallace Halloween costume is fucking stupid. Nobody's into the volleyball this much.
He is every libertarian geek bro that I've ever argued both sides with online. Is so terrible.
But Randy, why do you feel so angry about arguing both sides?
God, I hate him so much. I see him talking in his like gentle voice and his little smile, and I'm like, man, I guess this works on some people, but
the way he wades into I might get a chance to meet with the Dalai Lama.
Yep.
And I can solve this Tibet-China thing.
Yep.
I'm going to put some thought into that.
Yep.
There's another time he does it later of like, it's the Mexico City thing in the finale.
Shit, yeah.
The Mexico thing of like, you know what? Mexico's had a problem with kidnappings and cartels, and I'm going to solve the entire problem of crime and machismo in Latino culture myself.
And that's the thing, I think. And he believes it. Like, I don't think it's just sociopath. I think he actually believes it.
For a full minute, I was waiting on the Mexico espers to start kidnapping people. I was waiting on Keith to be like, you've got to abandon morality and beat them at their own game and then stop. That's how you end crime. You become the mob boss, and then you lay down the swords.
Yeah. I get that what's charismatic, what's appealing about him is a guy who's so confident despite lacking any reason to be confident in anything, even though he is a judo champ. The bit,
oh my God, when they're mocking him
for being a judo champ, and they're mocking themselves. They're like, how did we ever fall for this dumbass?
Oh God. And so even though What the Bleep Do We Know is a stupid movie that got me a lot of stupid questions working at a video store, and I really don't care much about Mark Vicente, but I am a little more forgiving of him than Randy, just because dude supplied an outlandish amount of tape of him being chumped one time after another. Where I was like, dude, the only thing the whole world knows about you is that you needed a friend so bad that you got all these fucking people into this.
Yeah, that's true.
Goddamn, dude!
It's a power thing. Keith Raniere needed power, and that's why.
Oh man, when he makes Bonnie lick the puddle, and like he gets off on all of this, all of it.
He's awful, and I hate him. So let's talk about Seduced, which, Kyle, you and I
which follows India, who I would have sworn would go down for this.
It's fascinating to watch because she was much more like Mark was an insider in the cult in one way, but India was an insider in a very different way, and it brings a different perspective. But like Kyle said. It's like they
Mark invented all the techniques that enslaved India. He just wasn't fuckable.
They get 9 episodes of The Vow into one episode of Seduced. Like I feel like they and partly because I can't fairly judge. Like it's possible that because of the grounding of The Vow that they were
because you already know some of the base facts now. Yeah,
but I don't think they assumed we'd watch The Vow when they made Seduced, and they certainly they tell us everything we need to know. They're going more linear. They're telling one story. And I feel like unless it spreads out the way The Vow did, The Seduce is going to be a stronger story.
I hope everybody watches every version of this because, like, Tiger King was weird and fun, and I think it only took kind of one Tiger King for everybody to go, roadside zoos are creepy. But I hope NXIVM becomes, like, the Kleenex or the like, you just tubing on a Zoom call. Like I hope NXIVM becomes a fucking catchphrase for this kind of self-help predatory shit.
Yeah.
Because it's not that this stuff, and it's not that reframing the way you think about your past fail, like it's insidious because this shit is positive being used by psychopaths.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like, this is helpful stuff that you would tell your friends if you were trying to help them through a hard time in their lives. But to open yourself up to anything like that, you've got to be a little vulnerable, and that's when Keith Raniere pounces.
That's what this has in common with Tiger King, to bring back the reference, is that the NXIVM, they look for people that have like cracks in their armor. They look for like people on the fringe. Yeah, maybe it's not crackheads, but they can look at the son of, a wealthy family in Mexico, and it's pretty easy to say, you don't feel like you earned your wealth. You wonder, you didn't steal it, but you don't feel like you earned it, do you?
You feel like you're supposed to be great, but you aren't. I can help with that.
Yeah, it's like, no shit, everybody probably feels that way.
I guess we're glad. We should be glad NXIVM didn't get their hooks in Don Trump before he ascended to the presidency, or there'd be a NXIVM president. Keith Raniere would be the fucking vice president.
Keith Raniere will get his hooks in Eric Trump.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's how that goes.
Yeah. Oh, no. Wait, who's the... Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Tiffany.
Eric, you're absolutely right. No, I was like...
Tiffany's in DOS, yeah. I don't know that for a fact.
It just seems likely.
I just made it up. I'll repeat it if you want me to. It's a totally made up thing.
but Kyle, so what did you think of Seduced, like, as a first episode? Like it's really good, right? Like, it's certainly better.
No,
I was deeply afraid STARZ couldn't make a documentary. Yeah, honestly.
What they do is they tell you how this works, and not like how you show up and you get a scarf and this. No, like how you can get a bunch of people in a room and you can essentially start programming them step by step. And they even show, like, I'll admit it, I've bought some Tony Robbins tapes. I like it. Okay, it's my thing. All right, I'm not paying.
This stuff works. And
I'm not going to some seminars or anything like that. But I heard a lot of things that I'd heard in Tony Robbins tapes, like Keith Raniere used out of context, of course.
Yeah.
But I was like, wait a second, there's something more to this. And you find out in Seduced, no, he's taking stuff from Amway. He's taking stuff from other cult leaders. And from pyramid marketing, and he's just putting all these things together and kind of creating his own
Werner Erhard
scheme.
Werner Erhard seminars.
Can I tell you
from back in the 70s?
One of the things
he pulls one from a lot of shit.
One of the things Seduced does that I think that the Vow could have used more of. The Vow only talks to people who were in on this cult story in some way, whether they were trying to take it down or they were involved in it. The Seduced brings in like 3 cult deprogramming experts who talk about not just NXIVM, but how NXIVM is like other cults. And I think that baseline was so useful and so basic that I'm amazed that the Vow didn't have it.
Well, because the main issue with The Vow is wondering whether or not people are getting that, how this happened.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it is salacious that it happened.
Yeah.
And, like, they've got brands, so you know it happened.
Right. Yeah.
But how the fuck did you go from Tony Robbins to branding?
Yeah. And,
like, walk me through the trauma
or to
bonding.
licking a puddle. Or,
walk me through the Socratic method and trauma bonding that got you here.
And Seduced does that very, very well. And I'm curious what going forward they do, because they have the insider, they've got India, they've got Catherine, they have the insider view too, but they're bringing the outsider.
I am a little tired of Catherine. I am interested in India's story, but I'm a little tired of anher series that is going to be a lot of Catherine talking.
There's a little bit of that. She's not as heavily featured, but having
the moment where she picks the phone up and is like, could cousin Charles reach out?
Actually,
Prince,
the grandmother, who is closer to who you guys were just talking about, she's in the Seduced documentary more than the definitely.
Oh, she's great. I'm glad to see more of her. She had a very British like. Would you like another cake? Oh, we should definitely get India away from those horrible people.
You're not serious.
Like, oh, is it the brainwashing? I spent 3 summers with a guru. It was horrible.
So I came away from The Vow definitely not really interested in watching a season 2. And honestly, had it not been TV Dude's homework, I'm not sure I would have finished it. And I came away from the first episode of Seduced thinking, I can't wait to watch more of this.
I want everybody to watch. I mean, I'm going to watch all of it. I'm fascinated. I want to listen to the podcast and read the books. There's 2 different podcasts. There's a podcast out of, I think, Albany right now that is following the trial like day by day.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I haven't listened
I will
to that one
say,
yet. But
Val...
I want everybody to listen to all of these because fuck Keith Raniere. If it doesn't go global, what a joke, creep, predator this dude is, he will go somewhere else, find some money, and do it again.
Yes, he will.
Because he's already been brought up on fraud charges and shit with his executive business systems or whatever the fuck, and started over as a self-help guru. Yep. He will start over again if we don't
byline
make him a global
partners or byline marketing.
Yes.
I will say, in defense of The Vow, I'm kind of on the same level with you, Randy. It's for me, it's the people who are on the camera are also the people who are making the documentary. So that bias comes through in some of it. And when you see it done better, you're like, oh, you guys were snoozing on a lot of this, either saving it for season 2 or just not doing your homework. But one of the things that I really like about how the season ended, and a kind of an argument for the thing I just complained about, is that the whole time you ask yourself, maybe this is legal. Like, maybe they're consenting adults, and like, yeah, this guy's a creep, and he got one over on him. But like, maybe it's legal. And it's not until the season finale of The Vow where you find out what you Googled at the beginning, you know, that he's going to jail with Allison Mack. But it's not till you finally see like the FBI arrest him where you're like, oh no, okay, this is illegal. You definitely can't do this. And then the moment in the very last episode where you hear him in the jail cell sounding just as confident as every clip we've seen him in thus far.
Hadn't lost a step. No shine knocked off him at all.
And his final words, so you think that's bad? So talk to me. You know?
Yeah.
That honestly is what made me it made me concerned about a season 2 of The Vow. If it is going to be Keith trying to explain himself, and I don't feel like they're going to vindicate Keith by any stretch, but I don't give a fuck either way. I don't need to hear anything else out of you. Have all the footage you need of that fuck speaking.
I never see him again.
2 points to that. All right, I think that's not Vow season 2, but that is definitely out there. Whether or not a Netflix or a Hulu would show it.
His people, I'm sure, right now are making a documentary
that's
defending
the thing.
him.
You know there are people that are
it'll take him 7 years, and he'll make Mark redo it 8 times.
Yeah. But no, there are people that are obviously probably out there and are still loyal to him. And I'd be surprised if we didn't see a rebut come out that is like from his point of view.
I assumed that would be India's documentary.
Yeah, it is not.
So I can't wait to watch Seduced. I'm only holding it off because Fanny and I have been watching The Vow together like week to week, and so I'm waiting to watch Seduced with her.
I will say that it hasn't been as good as, well, definitely McMillions has been like the gold standard for that week-to-week documentary. But I've kept it in my queue for better or for worse, and there's only been a few weeks where I put off not watching it, but it's been up there. Usually my palate cleanser for really scary episodes of Lovecraft Country.
Which brings us to our final show for the week that I saved so that we would be able to...
Oh no, the scary one?
Yeah, let's just...
Quick, I'm going to pull the covers up over my face.
let's just put the spoiler warning right up front. We're going to spoil probably the entire season of Lovecraft Country when we talk about this.
Also, for week-to-week listeners, if you haven't watched this week's episode, just pause it now, watch it when you do, and then come back. Because you're going to want to listen to it. You're going to want to talk about it yourself. It was a great ending.
So it's funny you say that, Kyle, because in my Facebook land, the consensus seems to be that Lovecraft Country lost a step and fell, and that it had a really bad ending.
The algorithm is trying to turn you... don't.
No, the only weak episode of Lovecraft Country was episode 2.
Yeah, I liked episode 2. Like, I
liked it. It just was the only close to a weak episode.
I do think this is a close to perfect season of TV. In terms of the variety each episode gave with the through story we got by the end of it. Like, love it.
The through story is so strong and so solid. It picks up from minute to minute from the episode's ending, and yet they are wildly different genres every time, and it all yet feels the same world.
I wonder... So,
I mean, by the end of it, when Hippolytus got blue hair and is straight out of her fucking sci-fi Doctor Who world, and she still fits perfectly. I believe that she is still on the same team as Gia and Atticus and Letty.
Yeah, they've put together a superhero team by the end of it. They've got a Korean fox demon. They've got a sci-fi woman from the future. They've got a couple of magicians, one of whom is invulnerable.
They have a monster, a literal monster.
They've got a Yakshagath.
So the thing that I find interesting is that I think what
fucking D in her arm.
What may have put some people off of this, I think, is that they were expecting it to be Watchmen level, like HBO serious drama story with the elements of horror, and instead it pulls it does. I mean, it is serious. It's HBO level, but it definitely steers into the pulp aspect of the whole thing. That is inspiration.
What if the Rocketeer was a cosmic horror?
Yeah. And I think that,
and I'm fine with Rocketeer cosmic horror.
I am too. I love what they did. I love I mean, it's got its seriousness. It is addressing racial equality issues that are important now today. But at the same time...
Just the seriousness of watching Dee deal with the after effects of her curse is a gut punch.
So I thought that... I saw people talking about they didn't think the overall overarching story fell together, and I disagree entirely. I think that the story builds really nicely. I thought that the story of Ruby and Christina, and that Christina really did love Ruby as much as she's capable of love, but that Ruby committed the ultimate sin, which was going against her, and that she had to die for that.
This plan's too big.
But did
Christina
she?
Puts the stakes up.
Is a coma the same as being dead? Because she has to be in a coma in order for the spell to work.
No, she's dead. She
killed her to make the...
she uses dead bodies to make the potions.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure she said that in order to make the potions, she has to leave those people in coma. So, like, William and the woman from the beginning are in the basement, and they're both in a coma.
No, both.
That was my interpretation.
Dead. I thought those people are both.
I thought they were both
dead. She did tell Letty, "I killed your sister," and I was like, Letty doesn't know how this works. No, Maybe she lied to her.
When we see the bodies, they look dead. They don't look like they're.
I think they're dead.
Yeah, I think they're dead.
But I think they're dead. But I wouldn't put it past them on season 2.
But yeah,
but I do think Christina loved her or loved Ruby as much as she could. But Christina explains the stakes to her.
Yeah.
If I fuck this spell up, I have killed my entire family for nothing.
Yeah. Also, that moment of joy that they get when they're all singing along in the car, even Montrose, good. And also...
Even Gia.
Yeah, even Gia.
Oh, my wife was like, something bad's going to happen. I'm scared. I don't want to watch now.
Well, and they were heading back to Artem, and so I was waiting for them, and I was like, nope, all those cops are dead. They at least have to hire a new clan.
Yeah.
But I had a moment of like, are they about to be singing in the car and then drive into the same goddamn county?
I had the same thought. Because it's a moment of joy, but at the same time, we all had the same thought, which is, how is this going to go bad? And that's great
Yeah.
horror
I mean,
pacing. Yeah.
I'll be real. I can't watch two characters drive a car and the driver talk to the other person
Right.
without covering my fucking eyes.
Yeah, because that might happen.
I
Yeah.
seriously, it's too,
But
Paul Walker
I
risky.
love that moment. I love Gia's story. Like Gia becoming
Oh man,
her where she goes, and I thought they were going to kill her off, and I'm glad they didn't.
yeah. She does not die. After a short discussion with Randy, I had to go check that because I thought that stepping into the darkness killed her.
But I also thought
Yeah.
because Journey Smollett Bell is so popular as an actress, I thought that they'd killed Letty.
When did she get the When did she get the fucking scar back?
I think the notion that Christina did not permanently remove it. That maybe you can't.
Well, no.
remove.
Can we talk about this because
Yeah, please.
they address this in flashback
Okay.
because this is a thing.
I just
where,
assumed I missed the bit.
Yeah.
No, so when she's fighting with Christina Ruby up in the clock tower, Ruby pushes her out. All right, or the
Yeah.
Ruby actress.
Right.
Yeah, Vertigo kicks her out the
While
window.
she's falling, Christina put it back on her
So she did it on
because-
purpose.
because she didn't want to kill her. She just wanted to stop her.
Oh, that's a bit of
Which-
mercy I did not catch.
See,
Yeah.
so and they definitely did a point where they made a flashback, so they showed you like you could see
Her doing it?
Ruby mouthing the words for the incantation, and then
Okay.
she's got the scar again.
Oh wow.
But if you accept that that's what happened, and maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, that seems out of character. You know, after the previous scene where she took it off and she's like, "I hate all you,"
Yeah.
like that she would
if
show
she's
that
willing to kill
mercy.
Ruby, that she'd be willing to kill Letty.
Yeah, that is a little
Except
weird.
that Letty's pregnant with
the next
technically-
thing-
Oh
line.
shit!
Oh,
Actually, yeah, the
it's
blood, the
baby.
air.
You're right.
So
that makes sense.
she could possibly come back if the blood.
She
yeah,
might have
that
just been
makes
saving the
sense.
baby and
Oh,
Letty's
maybe.
attached.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I hadn't quite figured that one out too. It's like I thought maybe it was a temporary spell that she was just fucking
Mm-hmm.
with her. She couldn't actually take away the. But knowing that she gave it back to that's interesting. It changes things. And
Yeah.
So, talking spinoffs, I desperately want my Dee and her pet Yog Shoggoth
oh man,
now. Like, I want a series now.
that last moment with
Dee with the robot arm, tearing the throat out of Christina,
I
and then her
loved
pet.
that.
that was so good.
yes.
The cosmic
Cosmic
shot
horror.
with the moon in the background
Yeah.
was so cool.
Good.
I was surprised they killed Atticus. I mean, even
Yeah.
though they told us he was
telegraphed
gonna
it.
die.
Every
Yes,
single character,
but I still didn't
everybody
believe
who
it.
said a prophecy,
Yep.
and no, he won't. I think we'll be able to pull it off with every character in the scene
Yes.
going, no,
Yeah,
no.
I know. They got me because they were all so convinced, and I was like, no, they're not going to do that.
Well, and you know,
Very rarely do I get mad at CG versus man in suit
Yeah.
or practical effect or whatever. It's usually fine. But they did the big spectacular, like she swings the giant knife and cuts his entire, like splits his entire forearm open
Yeah.
on both sides.
Yeah.
And it's CG and blood just pours out.
Yeah.
And I love her standing in the blood rain. Like that was crazy looking and shit.
Yeah.
But the big cuts on his arms look
Yeah.
like they look really CG fake and rubbery to me.
Yeah.
And I wish instead we had gotten an old school 80s like or 70s like close up on the arm and cut me a latex arm.
I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
You know, the second that we kind of realized that they killed him off, I started thinking of there are possibilities to where the actor could return. If
There's other dimensions,
Well,
there's parallel worlds.
there is that one, but I think even closer is we know that Atticus' son goes on to write the story.
Yeah.
His son being played by the same actor and possibly coming back, and Letty being his mom instead of his and there could be something with that.
Yeah.
Or like you said, obviously the alternate dimensions and stuff. But it's crazy. I want to see the story of all the other characters actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm mad Ruby's dead. I really liked her discovering magic on her
I
own
did
terms.
too. I love where they go with this though. The end that not only did she take magic away from Christina, she took it away from all the white people.
What?
So
a
that-
great- Oh, yes.
So there's 33, 32 other lodges,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All white dudes.
Yeah.
None suddenly, I mean, nationwide,
Yeah.
suddenly there's lodges out there, I'm sure, doing their own bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, well, tonight on our apex of the moon, we're going to do blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And bam, their shit shorts out.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. I want to see a season 2 pick up with all these fucking frustrated whatever cop necromancers that can't do shit anymore.
Where it's like they have magic, but now they're facing the real evil threat, which is man. Like man in this show, specifically white man, has been one of the scariest elements to their adventures the whole season.
And it's not like all black people across America know any magic.
Right.
Nobody knows magic's real.
But what I want, what I don't know if they're going to do...
But the possibility's there now.
What I don't know if they're going to do, what I really want, and I know this requires some recasting maybe or whatever, I want them to jump forward about 20 years. I want them to do the next one in the 70s and show us what happens 20 years after only black people have magic.
Ooh.
The white people don't.
Yeah.
And still just as secret, but like the voodoo lady that put the blood X's on the door.
Yeah.
Like all of that still works and works real well.
And I want to see them going forward with it. And I don't know if they will. I don't know if that's the plan, but that's kind of what I want to see next.
I have an interpretation of this. I don't know that this was the intention or not, but it is interesting. Part of the thesis, which is, H.P. Lovecraft did not like black people. So it's like, can you separate the person from like what they made, their art or their stories? And I saw a couple references that seemed a little Harry Potter-ish. One was when Atticus with the baseball bat, where he saves Montrose and George's kids.
Yep.
The whole, kind of going back in time and, you were the hero all along. Yep. And then the whole thing before his big sacrifice, getting to see his mom, having that moment with the ghost of his mom.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I was like, I can totally relate to, feelings that I have for J.K. Rowling post, things that she said, but like also still liking those books. Like, I don't know. For me, it was a moment where I kind of had to, think about some of those things, in my own way. It was kind of an interesting observation I wanted to share.
I'm really happy with this. I think by the time it wrapped, when it started out, I thought we were going to get something, like I say, on the level of sort of a Watchmen, like this is going to be one big giant story. And then by the time we got to episode 3 and 4, I'm like, oh no, this is more of an anthology of the week, and I'm cool with that, but it's not what I thought it was going to be. I'm pretty
very different show than I expected.
I'm pretty happy with where it left off. I don't know if it's like my favorite show of the year or anything, but it's definitely going to rank pretty highly.
Yeah. I for being not at all the show that I wanted it to be, honestly, I ended up really enjoying the show that it is and being absolutely surprised by it, which is the best part.
Yeah.
I'm also blown away. It's a top 10 show, I think, for sure.
Well, next week, I guess we're going to see if we have another show that gets on our week-to-week radar when Discovery launches, because we've already watched the first episode and we haven't talked about it yet at all because it was not horror themed. Next week's theme is the bright future, not the dark present. Because we're going to talk like Discovery,
Big Dog Season 2?
West Wing special, no Big Dog Season 2, not ever. We're going to talk
the name of the episode.
Trial of Chicago
Real Rob
7,
reboot.
No Real Rob reboot, although I do like it's a triple R. But that takes us through our Halloween. Again, if you're a patron, you can click over to the patron exclusive and listen to us talk about a whole lot more Mike Flanagan, because we're talk about some of his movies and stuff. But if you're not, then this is a good time to become a patron. But otherwise, this is the end of the episode. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Les.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you to Mike Flanagan for being awesome. And until next week,
TV Dudes out.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.